What happens when a handful of humans, armed with nothing but scraps of alien tech and sheer determination, face an unstoppable extraterrestrial army? You won't believe how they turned the tide in the most unexpected way. The world changed forever when the first tremors shook the ground beneath Chicago. Buildings swayed violently as if caught in some cosmic earthquake, but it wasn't natural forces causing the destruction. It was something far worse. High above the city, enormous silvery disks hung motionless in the sky, their surfaces shimmering like liquid metal under the afternoon sun. People froze in terror, pointing skyward as these otherworldly vessels unleashed beams of searing energy that carved through steel and concrete alike. Among those who witnessed the chaos was Commander Michael Stone, a decorated veteran whose instincts screamed danger long before official reports confirmed the worst. Earth was under attack by an alien species calling themselves the Zenarans. Stone stood on the observation deck of Fort Truman, his eyes fixed on the horizon where smoke plumes rose from nearby urban centers. His weathered face betrayed no emotion, though inside he felt the weight of impending doom pressing down on him. Decades of military service had prepared him for many scenarios, but nothing could have readied him for this moment, the day humanity faced extinction. As orders poured in from Washington, each more desperate than the last, Stone realized the government's usual protocols wouldn't cut it against such an adversary. He needed a different approach, one that relied not on sheer numbers but on speed, stealth, and ingenuity. Meanwhile, across the country in Manhattan, Lieutenant Emily Wong found herself caught in the midst of pandemonium. Her unit had been conducting routine patrols when the invasion began, and within minutes, everything spiraled out of control. Civilians ran screaming through the streets as towering mechanized constructs, Zenaran war machines, crushed vehicles and buildings without hesitation. Wong's training kicked in immediately. She barked commands to her squad over comms, directing them to establish defensive positions despite knowing deep down that conventional weapons would be useless against their attackers. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm her, a spark of determination ignited within her chest. If anyone could figure out how to fight back, it was her, and maybe, just maybe, others like her scattered around the globe. As night fell, the true scope of the catastrophe became clear. News outlets broadcast images of burning cities and mass evacuations, while social media erupted with videos of people fleeing in terror. Governments scrambled to respond, but their efforts were disjointed and ineffective. It was during this chaos that Stone received a secure transmission from Central Command, an order to stand down and await further instructions. The message infuriated him. Standing down meant waiting for death. Instead, he made a decision that would alter the course of history. He would take matters into his own hands. Gathering what remained of his troops, Stone set out to find others willing to resist, starting with a name whispered among the ranks: Emily Wong. By dawn, Stone's convoy of battered military vehicles rolled into the outskirts of New York City, where rumors placed Lieutenant Wong's surviving unit. What they found was both heartbreaking and inspiring. A ragtag group of soldiers and civilians holed up in an old subway station, using whatever makeshift defenses they could scavenge. At the center of it all was Wong herself, her once pristine uniform now torn and stained with soot. Despite the exhaustion etched onto her face, her eyes burned with resolve. When Stone introduced himself, she didn't waste time exchanging pleasantries. "If you're here to tell us to give up," she said sharply, "you can turn around right now." Their initial meeting was tense, marked by clashing personalities and differing strategies. Stone favored bold, aggressive tactics, while Wong advocated for careful planning and resource conservation. Yet beneath their disagreements lay mutual respect, for each recognized in the other a kindred spirit, someone unwilling to surrender even in the face of overwhelming odds. Over the next few hours, they pooled their knowledge and resources, combining Stone's experience with Wong's technical expertise to devise a plan that might buy humanity some time. Their first objective was simple yet critical: secure intelligence on the Zenarans. Using drones salvaged from a nearby tech warehouse, Wang led a reconnaissance mission to infiltrate one of the alien landing zones. The operation was fraught with peril, as every step brought them closer to detection by Zenaran patrols. But the risk paid off when they managed to hack into a damaged Zenaran drone and extract valuable data. Back at the subway hideout, Wang worked tirelessly to decrypt the information, her fingers flying across a laptop keyboard as Stone paced anxiously behind her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she turned to him with a grim smile. "I think I've found their weak spot," she announced. What followed was a heated debate about whether to act immediately or wait for reinforcements. Stone argued that delay would cost lives, while Wang cautioned against rushing in blindly. In the end, they compromised, agreeing to launch a small-scale strike designed to test their theory without fully committing their limited forces. The tension between them only grew as preparations began, but neither could deny the growing sense of camaraderie among their team. For the first time since the invasion, there was hope not just in survival but in the possibility of striking back. What happens next? This is where our heroes face their greatest challenge yet. The chosen target was a Zenaran supply depot located on the outskirts of the city, nestled within the ruins of an abandoned industrial complex. Intelligence suggested it housed critical components for their war machines, making it a prime opportunity to cripple their operations. Under the cover of darkness, Stone and Wang led a team of 20 volunteers through the labyrinthine streets, avoiding both alien patrols and collapsing infrastructure. Each step forward required precision and nerves of steel, as any misstep could alert the enemy to their presence. As they approached the depot, Wang deployed several EMP devices she had jury-rigged from scavenged electronics. These crude gadgets were their best chance at disabling the Zenaran technology temporarily, buying enough time to execute their plan. With bated breath, she activated the first device, watching as its electromagnetic pulse rippled outward, briefly disrupting the power grid surrounding the area. For a fleeting moment, the hum of alien machinery ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. Seizing the opportunity, Stone signaled for the assault to begin. The strike unfolded in chaotic bursts of action. Small teams moved swiftly, planting explosives on key structures, while others provided covering fire with modified rifles capable of penetrating the aliens' crystalline armor. Despite their careful planning, things quickly escalated beyond control. One of the Zenarans detected their intrusion and sounded an alarm, summoning reinforcements faster than anticipated. Suddenly, the air buzzed with the whirring of mechanical legs as hulking war machines emerged from the shadows, their glowing eyes scanning for intruders. Amidst the chaos, Wang demonstrated remarkable leadership, coordinating retreats and counterattacks with calm efficiency. She directed her team to focus on specific weak points identified earlier, exploiting vulnerabilities in the Zenarans' design. Meanwhile, Stone fought alongside his men with raw determination, wielding a plasma cutter repurposed from industrial tools. Together, they managed to destroy several storage units containing vital parts, dealing a significant blow to the enemy's logistics network. However, success came at a heavy price. Several members of their team fell during the engagement, their sacrifices weighing heavily on everyone's conscience. As they regrouped at a safe distance, nursing wounds and mourning losses, the reality of their situation sank in deeper than ever before. Victory, if achievable, would demand unimaginable sacrifice. Yet despite the toll, morale remained surprisingly high. They had proven something crucial, that humans could fight back, that the Zenarans weren't invincible. Back at the subway hideout, celebrations were muted but heartfelt. Stone addressed the group, acknowledging their bravery and resilience. "Tonight," he declared, "we showed them we won't go quietly into the night. We'll keep hitting them until they regret setting foot on our planet." His words resonated deeply, reigniting the flicker of hope that had sparked during their earlier discussions. But even as they celebrated, Wang couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the beginning. The Zenarans wouldn't take this defeat lying down. They'd adapt, retaliate, and come back stronger. And when they did, humanity would need more than courage and clever tactics to survive. She glanced at Stone, who was already sketching out plans for their next move, and resolved to stay one step ahead no matter the cost. News of the successful raid spread quickly through underground networks, inspiring pockets of resistance across the globe. Encouraged by their unexpected triumph, Stone and Wong decided to expand their operations, targeting additional Zenaran installations in strategic locations. Their goal was twofold: gather more intelligence and disrupt the invaders' supply chains, forcing them to divert resources away from civilian areas. Each mission pushed their team to new limits, testing not only their physical endurance but also their ability to innovate under pressure. One particularly daring operation took them deep into the heart of Philadelphia, where a massive Zenaran command center loomed over the devastated cityscape. Intelligence indicated that this facility served as a hub for coordinating attacks throughout the eastern seaboard, making it a priority target. To reach it undetected, Wong devised a risky plan involving decoys and diversions. Teams of volunteers created false signals and noise in adjacent districts, drawing Zenaran forces away from the real objective. Meanwhile, Stone led a smaller infiltration team through underground tunnels, navigating treacherous terrain filled with booby traps and automated defenses. The tension mounted as they neared the command center, every shadow seeming to conceal an unseen threat. Inside, they encountered layers of security systems unlike anything they'd faced before: biometric scanners, motion detectors, and autonomous sentry drones patrolling the corridors. Wong's technical prowess proved invaluable as she bypassed locks and disabled alarms, often improvising solutions on the fly. At one point, she used a captured Zenaran interface to manipulate internal communications, tricking guards into believing a false emergency was unfolding elsewhere. Despite these successes, the mission nearly unraveled when a hidden surveillance system detected their presence. Alarms blared, and the facility went into lockdown, trapping them inside. Cornered and outnumbered, Stone ordered a full retreat, but Wong refused to abandon the primary objective. "If we leave now, everything we've done will be for nothing," she argued, her voice steady despite the danger. Reluctantly, Stone agreed to press on, trusting her judgment. In the final moments, Wong executed a masterstroke. She hacked into the central processing unit, uploading a virus designed to corrupt the Zenaran's databases. As the system began to fail, she triggered a series of explosions timed to coincide with the facility's collapse. The resulting chaos allowed the team to escape just as reinforcements arrived, narrowly avoiding capture. Though exhausted and battered, they returned to base triumphant, having dealt another significant blow to the Zenarans. These victories came at a steep cost, however. Casualties mounted, supplies dwindled, and the constant strain wore heavily on everyone involved. Yet paradoxically, the increased danger seemed to forge stronger bonds among the survivors. Shared hardships bred trust and loyalty, transforming disparate individuals into a cohesive fighting force. Even Stone and Wong, whose initial clashes had been legendary, now operated with seamless synergy, anticipating each other's moves almost instinctively. Outside their immediate circle, the impact of their actions rippled outward. Other resistance cells began adopting similar tactics, launching coordinated assaults that stretched the Zenarans thin. Reports filtered in of successful sabotages, ambushes, and acts of defiance spreading like wildfire. For the first time since the invasion, there was a glimmer of optimism, a belief that perhaps, just perhaps, humanity still had a fighting chance. Yet beneath the surface, doubts lingered. How long could they sustain this level of aggression? What unforeseen challenges awaited them as the Zenarans adapted to their tactics? And most importantly, how far were they willing to go to ensure victory? These questions haunted Wong in particular, whose analytical mind constantly sought contingencies and alternatives. She knew that complacency could prove fatal, especially when facing an enemy as relentless and resourceful as the Zenarans. With each passing day, the stakes grew higher and the margin for error narrower. Stone and Wang convened a council of sorts, gathering leaders from various resistance cells to strategize on a larger scale. The meeting took place in a hidden bunker beneath the ruins of Boston, its walls adorned with maps and diagrams charting potential targets and troop movements. Tensions ran high as factions debated priorities and resource allocation, each arguing passionately for their region's needs. Amidst the clamor, Wang proposed a bold initiative, a simultaneous multi-front offensive aimed at crippling the Zenarans' primary bases of operation. Her proposal sparked heated discussion, with some dismissing it as reckless and others embracing it as humanity's best chance. Stone listened intently, weighing the risks and rewards before finally voicing his support. "Desperate times call for desperate measures," he declared, earning nods of agreement from key allies. Thus, Operation Exodus was born, a coordinated effort spanning multiple cities and continents, designed to overwhelm the Zenarans through sheer unpredictability. Preparations consumed weeks, during which Wang worked tirelessly to synchronize timing and logistics. She established encrypted communication channels, ensuring real-time updates between teams separated by vast distances. Meanwhile, Stone focused on rallying morale, visiting outposts and delivering impassioned speeches that reignited hope among weary fighters. Together, they transformed disparate groups into a unified army, bound by purpose and shared sacrifice. On the eve of the operation, Wang double-checked every detail, her mind racing through countless scenarios. Sleep eluded her as she reviewed contingency plans, adjusting variables and recalculating probabilities. Beside her, Stone sat quietly, offering silent support. Sensing her anxiety, he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we've already achieved something extraordinary," he said softly. "People believe again." Dawn broke over a world poised on the brink of transformation. Across the globe, resistance fighters mobilized, hearts pounding with anticipation and fear. In Tokyo, a team infiltrated a Zenaran manufacturing plant, sabotaging production lines and igniting fires that lit up the skyline. Simultaneously, operatives in London breached a communications array, jamming alien signals and severing vital links in their command structure. Elsewhere, guerrilla strikes disrupted supply convoys and destroyed fuel depots, forcing the Zenarans to scramble for replacements. Back in Boston, Wang monitored progress via live feeds, her eyes darting between screens displaying chaotic scenes of battle. Every report brought fresh challenges: unexpected reinforcements, malfunctioning equipment, casualties mounting faster than expected. Yet amidst the turmoil, patterns emerged. The Zenarans, caught off guard by the scale and coordination of the assault, struggled to mount effective countermeasures. Their rigid hierarchies faltered under the weight of decentralized human tactics, exposing vulnerabilities previously unseen. Stone, meanwhile, coordinated ground operations, adapting strategies on the fly based on incoming intel. His voice crackled over comms, issuing orders with clarity and authority. "Hold your positions. Reinforcements are en route," he shouted, rallying troops locked in fierce skirmishes. Despite the carnage, a sense of momentum built, driving them forward with renewed vigor. As night fell, the outcome remained uncertain. Battles raged on multiple fronts, ebbing and flowing like tides. Yet one thing became clear: humanity had seized the initiative, forcing the Zenarans onto the defensive for the first time. Spirits soared among the resistance, bolstered by tangible proof that their efforts mattered. For Wang, however, the battle was far from over. Analyzing data streams, she identified emerging trends suggesting the Zenarans were regrouping, consolidating forces for a massive counteroffensive. Time was running out. What happens next will change everything. Just as Operation Exodus reached its zenith, the Zenarans struck back with ferocity unmatched by previous encounters. Massive fleets descended upon targeted cities, unleashing devastating orbital bombardments that reduced entire neighborhoods to ash. Ground forces surged forward in overwhelming numbers, supported by newly deployed weapon systems capable of neutralizing human resistance with terrifying efficiency. Stone and Wong watched in horror as their carefully laid plans unraveled before their eyes, the tide turning inexorably against them. In Boston, panic gripped the resistance as Zenaran shock troopers breached perimeter defenses, their crystalline armor gleaming ominously in the dim light. Wong sprang into action, rerouting power to automated turrets and activating hidden traps designed to slow the advance. Her quick thinking bought precious seconds, allowing evacuation routes to open and civilians to flee to safer locations. But the enemy's numerical superiority soon overwhelmed these measures, forcing the defenders to fall back deeper into the bunker. Stone rallied his troops, organizing last-ditch stands at choke points and narrow passages where the Zenaran's size and firepower offered less advantage. Hand-to-hand combat erupted in claustrophobic corridors, the clash of metal and flesh echoing through reinforced walls. Soldiers fought desperately, pouring every ounce of strength into holding the line. Casualties mounted rapidly, yet the survivors refused to yield, driven by sheer willpower and the knowledge that failure meant annihilation. Above ground, the situation deteriorated further. Alien constructs roamed freely, hunting down stragglers and demolishing any remaining signs of organized resistance. Communication lines frayed as satellites were destroyed or jammed, cutting off isolated units from central command. Desperation crept into voices over fragmented radio transmissions, pleas for help going unanswered as chaos reigned supreme. Wong, trapped in the bunker's control room, wrestled with conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to join the fray, to stand shoulder to shoulder with her comrades in what might be humanity's final hour. But another part understood her true value lay in maintaining operational integrity, keeping systems running and coordinating whatever assets remained functional. With trembling hands, she patched together makeshift networks, relaying orders and status updates to scattered teams clinging to life in various sectors. Stone, meanwhile, confronted the harsh reality of leadership under siege. Decisions came fast and furious, each carrying life-or-death consequences. He ordered retreats when holding ground became untenable, sacrificing territory to preserve manpower. He reassigned scarce medical supplies to those most likely to survive, prioritizing future effectiveness over immediate compassion. Such choices weighed heavily on him, gnawing at his conscience even as he justified them as necessary evils. Despite the dire circumstances, moments of heroism shone brightly amid the darkness. A young engineer rigged a self-destruct sequence for a captured Zenaran drone, detonating it in the midst of an advancing column and wiping out dozens of enemies. Elsewhere, a wounded sniper continued firing until his last breath, taking down multiple adversaries before succumbing to his injuries. These acts of valor inspired others, reinforcing the notion that even in defeat, dignity and honor could prevail. As hours dragged into days, the balance shifted ever so slightly. Zenaran momentum slowed as logistical issues surfaced. Damaged infrastructure hindered resupply efforts, while prolonged engagements drained their reserves. Recognizing this window of opportunity, Wong implemented a daring gambit. She redirected surviving forces towards secondary objectives, creating diversions intended to stretch the invaders thinner still. Stone supported her strategy wholeheartedly, urging his people to exploit any weaknesses exposed during the counterattack. Though battered and bloodied, the resistance endured, clinging tenaciously to the hope that perseverance might yet turn the tables. For every setback suffered, lessons learned paved the way for future improvements. Tactics evolved, incorporating hard-won insights gleaned from bitter experience. Equipment was modified, repurposed, or discarded altogether in favor of innovations better suited to the evolving battlefield. And through it all, Stone and Wong remained steadfast pillars of strength, guiding their followers through adversity with unwavering resolve. Their partnership solidified into something greater than either had imagined possible, forged in the crucible of shared struggle and mutual admiration. Together, they represented humanity's indomitable spirit, a beacon of defiance shining brightly against the encroaching darkness. Buried deep within encrypted files extracted from the Zenaran command center, Wong discovered a revelation that chilled her to the bone. Hidden among mundane logistics and tactical briefings lay a classified document detailing the true purpose behind the invasion. The Zenarans weren't merely seeking dominance or resources. They were terraforming Earth, preparing it for colonization by altering atmospheric conditions and exterminating native species deemed incompatible with their biology. According to projections embedded in the file, the process would culminate in complete environmental collapse within 6 months, rendering the planet uninhabitable for humans. Shaken by the implications, Wong shared her findings with Stone, who absorbed the information with grim determination. "This changes everything," he muttered, pacing the dimly lit control room. No longer could they view the conflict as a straightforward war of attrition. Instead, it morphed into a race against time, a desperate bid to halt the Zenarans' ecological engineering before irreversible damage occurred. Failure meant not just conquest but extinction, an endgame devoid of survivors or remnants. Armed with this knowledge, they adjusted their strategy accordingly. Priority shifted from disrupting supply chains to targeting core facilities responsible for atmospheric manipulation. These sites, scattered across remote regions, operated under heavy guard and sophisticated shielding designed to withstand conventional attacks. Conventional methods would prove futile against such fortifications, necessitating unconventional approaches. Drawing upon lessons learned from previous missions, Wong devised a multi-phase plan leveraging stealth, deception, and brute force to penetrate these bastions of destruction. Phase 1 involved deploying autonomous drones equipped with experimental nanobombs capable of breaching Zenaran shields. Developed secretly in collaboration with rogue scientists, these miniature explosives utilized quantum entanglement principles to bypass traditional defenses. While risky and untested, they represented humanity's best shot at leveling the playing field. Phase 2 entailed inserting specialized teams directly into compromised facilities, tasked with disabling terraforming equipment and extracting critical data regarding ongoing modifications. Executing this ambitious blueprint required unprecedented cooperation among resistance cells worldwide. Resources were pooled, personnel redeployed, and timelines synchronized to maximize impact. Communication channels buzzed with activity as leaders hashed out details, ironing out kinks and addressing concerns. Trust became paramount, binding disparate groups together through shared purpose and mutual reliance. Even skeptics warmed to the idea, recognizing the urgency conveyed by Wong's presentation of irrefutable evidence. Stone assumed responsibility for coordinating ground operations, ensuring smooth transitions between phases and rapid response to emerging threats. His reputation preceded him, lending credibility to directives issued with characteristic decisiveness. Troops responded enthusiastically, galvanized by renewed clarity regarding their mission's significance. Morale soared as word spread of the Zenarans' ultimate goal, transforming fear into righteous anger and determination. Simultaneously, Wong spearheaded research initiatives aimed at countering Zenaran technology. Collaborating with brilliant minds salvaged from academia and industry, she explored avenues ranging from electromagnetic interference to bioengineered pathogens tailored specifically to degrade crystalline structures. Progress proved slow but promising, yielding incremental breakthroughs that bolstered confidence in eventual success. Amidst preparations, personal dynamics evolved subtly yet significantly. Stone and Wong, once defined by professional rivalry, now functioned as complementary halves of a cohesive whole. Their interactions reflected growing trust and respect, grounded in mutual recognition of strengths and weaknesses. During rare moments of respite, they shared quiet conversations about hopes and fears, forging bonds deeper than camaraderie alone. Others noticed the shift, commenting on how their synergy seemed to elevate everyone around them. As deployment dates approached, anticipation mingled with apprehension. Success promised salvation, failure assured doom. Yet regardless of outcome, Humanity stood united in purpose, driven by love for their home planet and refusal to surrender without a fight. Above all else, the revelation underscored a fundamental truth. Survival depended not solely on military prowess, but also on understanding the enemy's motives and exploiting inherent flaws. Armed with this insight, Stone and Wong prepared to embark on their most audacious endeavor yet, aware that destiny awaited at journey's end. Under the cover of darkness, teams infiltrated designated targets, moving silently through desolate landscapes scarred by months of warfare. Each facility loomed like a monolith against the horizon, surrounded by concentric rings of defenses bristling with lethal intent. Wong monitored progress remotely, her gaze fixed on holographic displays projecting real-time feeds from drone cameras. Every heartbeat counted as autonomous units approached shield perimeters, deploying nanobombs with surgical precision. The ensuing detonations rippled outward, momentarily destabilizing barriers and creating narrow windows of opportunity. Stone led one such insertion team, his presence instilling calm amidst chaos. Clad in modified stealth suits absorbing ambient light, they slipped past bewildered Zenaran sentries, capitalizing on confusion sown by initial breaches. Inside, corridors twisted like labyrinths, lined with pulsating conduits and humming machinery. Environmental controls maintained artificial climates optimal for terraforming processes, rendering breathable air toxic to human lungs. Oxygen masks became essential accessories, muffling voices but amplifying resolve. Tasked with locating central processors controlling atmospheric manipulations, Wong's protégés navigated treacherous terrain guided by augmented reality overlays mapping optimal routes. Along the way, they encountered automated defenses programmed to eliminate intruders swiftly. Ingenious solutions emerged on the fly, overloading circuits with improvised EMP grenades, redirecting coolant flows to freeze mechanisms solid. Each victory, however minor, propelled them closer to primary objectives. Meanwhile, Stone coordinated demolition squads focused on disabling auxiliary systems feeding mainframes. Explosive charges planted strategically crippled backup generators, plunging sections into darkness punctuated only by emergency lights casting eerie shadows. Communications flickered sporadically, hampering Zenaran responses as disarray spread throughout compounds. Yet despite setbacks, alien forces regrouped rapidly, launching counterassaults designed to retake lost ground. Combat erupted sporadically, confined to tight spaces where maneuverability dictated survival. Close-quarters engagements favored human agility over Zenaran bulk, though superior weaponry tilted scales precariously. Soldiers fought valiantly, trading blows with crystalline adversaries whose resilience tested limits of endurance. Blood flowed freely, staining floors slick with viscous fluids leaking from shattered exoskeletons. Pain and exhaustion blurred edges of consciousness, yet determination burned brighter than ever before. Back at command posts, Wong juggled myriad responsibilities, overseeing simultaneous operations while troubleshooting unforeseen complications. Feedback loops revealed vulnerabilities exploited by enterprising operators, prompting adjustments mid-mission. Data streams flooded sensors, overwhelming capacity yet providing invaluable insights facilitating adaptive strategies. Her voice echoed repeatedly over comms, issuing crisp instructions laced with encouragement. Hold position. Reinforcements inbound. Outside besieged facilities, diversionary tactics drew attention away from actual targets. Guerrilla units launched hit-and-run raids targeting peripheral installations, creating illusions of widespread assaults stretching Zenaran forces thin. Deception played crucial roles, convincing commanders to commit reserves prematurely, leaving core defenses exposed. Timing proved critical, requiring flawless execution to maintain illusionary pressure until final objectives achieved. Hours stretched interminably, fatigue gnawing relentlessly at bodies pushed beyond reasonable limits. Yet adrenaline fueled persistence, overriding physiological constraints threatening collapse. Progress accelerated incrementally, Milestones reached heralding imminent triumph. Final codes inputted, override sequences initiated, countdown timers activated, all converging toward climactic resolution looming inevitably near. And then, amidst crescendoing tension, culmination arrived abruptly. Central processors exploded simultaneously, releasing cascading failures rippling outward like shockwaves. Shielding collapsed entirely, exposing interiors vulnerable to follow-up strikes. Cheers erupted spontaneously among resistance fighters witnessing fruition of painstaking efforts materializing tangibly before eyes wide with disbelief. Against astronomical odds, humanity scored decisive victories, turning tides definitively favorably. Stone surveyed aftermath soberly, acknowledging magnitude achievements tempered by awareness residual dangers persisting unabated. Wang joined him shortly thereafter, sharing reflective smiles conveying pride accomplishment coupled acknowledgement work remaining unfinished. Together, they acknowledged transition phases completed successfully, paving pathways leading inexorably toward ultimate conclusions awaiting discovery horizons expanding exponentially ahead. As the final hours before departure ticked away, Wang and Stone convened in the dimly lit war room, poring over holographic maps of the solar system. Each asteroid belt was marked with potential entry points to Zenaran-controlled space, but only one location, a massive orbital station known as Nexus Prime, was identified as the nerve center for their command structure. It wasn't just a military outpost. It was the hub where all strategic decisions were made, transmitted, and executed across Earth's occupied territories. Wang leaned forward, her fingers tracing the projected trajectory of their planned route. If we can infiltrate Nexus Prime, we might be able to disable their entire chain of command, she said, her voice steady despite the enormity of the task ahead. But getting there won't be easy. We'll need to hijack one of their cruisers, reprogram its navigation systems, and slip through hyperspace undetected. Stone nodded, his jaw tightening. And once we're inside, what then? Do we sabotage everything? Or do we try to capture intel first? Both, Wang replied without hesitation. We take what we can, data, schematics, anything that could help us understand them better, but we also plant explosives at critical junctures. If things go south, we blow the place apart. No retreat, no surrender. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. This mission wouldn't just determine the fate of humanity. It would test the limits of courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice. Failure meant certain annihilation. Success? Even that came with no guarantees. The stolen Zenaran cruiser, codenamed Eclipse Dash, drifted silently through the void of space, its sleek crystalline hull blending seamlessly with the stars around it. Inside, the human crew worked tirelessly to maintain appearances, broadcasting false signals and mimicking alien communication patterns to avoid detection. Pilots monitored every flicker of movement on radar screens, while engineers fine-tuned the ship's cloaking mechanisms, ensuring they remained invisible to prying sensors. For Wang, seated in the cramped control chamber, the journey felt surreal. She had spent months studying Zenaran technology, deciphering their cryptic language and reverse engineering their systems. Now, surrounded by hums and vibrations emanating from alien machinery, she felt like an imposter playing a role far beyond her expertise. Yet, the stakes left no room for doubt or hesitation. Every decision mattered. Stone paced the narrow corridors, checking in with each team member. He stopped beside a young pilot named Marcus, who looked barely old enough to shave. "You holding up okay?" Stone asked gruffly, though his tone softened when he saw the fear etched into the boy's face. "Yes, sir," Marcus replied, gripping the controls tightly. "Just trying not to think about how much firepower is out there waiting to vaporize us." Stone clapped him on the shoulder. "Good. Thinking too much gets you killed. Focus on the job and trust your training." Hours stretched into days as Eclipse approached the designated hyperspace portal. The tension aboard the ship grew palpable, a collective breath held by everyone on board. When the countdown began for the jump, Wong closed her eyes, whispering silent prayers to whatever higher power might still be listening. With a lurch, the cruiser entered hyperspace, colors blurring into streaks of light as reality bent around them. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, with another jolt, they emerged on the other side, staring directly at Nexus Prime, a colossal structure floating amidst a sea of asteroids, bristling with defensive turrets and swarming with patrol ships. "This is it," Wong murmured, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. "Time to see if this crazy plan actually works." Docking procedures went off without a hitch, thanks to Wong's meticulous programming. Disguised in scavenged Zenaran armor, the infiltration team disembarked, blending seamlessly with the bustling activity of Nexus Prime. To the untrained eye, they appeared indistinguishable from their alien counterparts, crystalline exoskeletons shimmering under artificial lights, movements stiff yet deliberate. Inside, the station resembled a labyrinthine fortress, corridors lined with glowing conduits and pulsating energy cores. Wong led the way, her visor displaying real-time scans of the environment. Behind her, Stone kept watch, his hand resting on the hilt of a modified plasma cutter. Every step brought them closer to their objective, the central command chamber, where the Zenarans orchestrated their global campaign. Their progress was interrupted when a group of Zenaran officers approached, speaking rapidly in their guttural tongue. Wong froze, heart pounding as she struggled to recall the correct response. Drawing upon weeks of linguistic study, she responded haltingly, hoping her accent wouldn't give them away. Miraculously, the officers nodded and moved on, seemingly satisfied. Breathing a sigh of relief, Wong whispered into her comms, "Close call. Let's keep moving." Moments later, disaster struck. A stray maintenance drone collided with one of the team members, sending sparks flying and drawing unwanted attention. Alarms blared instantly, red lights flashing as automated defenses sprang to life. Zenaran troopers converged from all directions, weapons raised. "Scatter!" Stone barked, shoving Wong toward a nearby access hatch. "Stick to the plan." Splitting up, the team fought desperately to evade capture. Wong hacked into a security terminal, rerouting patrols and disabling turrets long enough for her comrades to regroup. Meanwhile, Stone engaged a squad of Zenarans head-on, using improvised explosives to create diversions. Despite being outnumbered, his ferocity bought precious seconds for others to escape. Reuniting in a deserted service tunnel, the survivors exchanged grim nods. They were exposed now with little hope of stealth. But quitting wasn't an option, not when so much depended on their success. Reaching the core required navigating increasingly fortified zones, each layer more impenetrable than the last. Wong devised a risky strategy, triggering localized power surges to overload shield generators, creating temporary gaps in the defenses. The process was painstaking, requiring split-second timing and precise calculations. One miscalculation could fry their own equipment or worse, alert the entire station to their presence. Finally, they reached the heart of Nexus Prime, a cavernous chamber dominated by a towering crystalline monolith. Data streams pulsed across its surface, illuminating rows of Zenaran overseers monitoring countless screens. This was the nexus of their empire, the brain controlling every facet of the invasion. Wong immediately set to work, planting charges at key structural points while simultaneously downloading terabytes of classified information onto portable drives. Her hands trembled slightly, but her focus never wavered. Beside her, Stone provided cover, picking off any Zenarans who ventured too close. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoed through the chamber. Reinforcements had arrived, an entire battalion pouring in from multiple entrances. Cornered, the humans prepared for a final stand. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before they overrun us," Stone growled, reloading his weapon. "Finish the job, Wong." She nodded, typing furiously as explosions rocked the chamber. With seconds to spare, she activated the detonation sequence. "Let's move!" she shouted, grabbing a drive and sprinting toward the exit. Behind them, the monolith collapsed in a spectacular implosion, sending shockwaves rippling outward. The team barely escaped, diving into eclipse as the station crumbled around them. Launching from Nexus Prime felt like stealing fire from the gods themselves. Zenaran fighters pursued relentlessly, firing volleys of plasma bolts that scorched the cruiser's hull. Wong manned the helm, weaving through asteroid fields with dizzying agility, while Stone coordinated defensive maneuvers from the rear compartments. As they neared the hyperspace portal, Wong initiated the jump sequence, praying the damaged engines wouldn't fail. For a terrifying instant, nothing happened. Then, with a bone-rattling lurch, Eclipse leapt into hyperspace, leaving their pursuers behind. Exhausted but triumphant, the crew cheered weakly, tears streaming down faces smeared with soot and sweat. They had done the impossible, not just surviving, but striking a devastating blow against their oppressors. Back on Earth, news of Nexus Prime's destruction spread like wildfire. Resistance cells celebrated openly, emboldened by the knowledge that the Zenarans' leadership had been crippled. Raids became bolder, strikes more frequent, as morale soared to unprecedented heights. Stone and Wong stood together atop a ruined skyscraper, gazing out at a city slowly reclaiming itself from ruin. "It's not over," Wong said softly. "They'll adapt. They always do." Stone placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Yeah, but now we've got the upper hand. And as long as people keep fighting, there's hope." Months passed, and the tide of war shifted decisively in humanity's favor. Using data recovered from Nexus Prime, scientists developed countermeasures capable of neutralizing Zenaran technology. Cities once reduced to rubble rose again, rebuilt stronger and more resilient than before. Commander Michael Stone and Lieutenant Emily Wong became legends, symbols of defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. Their story inspired generations to come, reminding humanity that even in the darkest hour, unity and determination could overcome any adversary. So subscribe to stay updated on stories of heroism, resilience, and triumph against all odds. Because sometimes, the smallest spark can ignite the brightest flame.